Hello, I'm Matthew Armstrong. Let's draw Fighting Frog, Havoc Hippo, Chill Chicken, and a bunny.
Hey, welcome back to Draw Along with Matthew Armstrong. I don't know if that's what we're going to be calling this, but I'll try it out. Maybe I'll edit that part out. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I am adding some water to the watercolors to get them ready to paint our little froggy picture here. Let's see, I want to get rid of some of these kind of areas that just dried a little bit too dark. I think they probably take away from the effect we're going for, this kind of magic-y, sorty thing. So I'll add water, sort of let it start taking the pigment off the surface of the paper. Instead of being a big dark splotch, it'll be a slightly lighter, fuzzier splotch. All right. What to color it? I can kind of see it in my head, but yeah. So I do have this color key, which is kind of handy to have because I can, I can compare it to over here, and then kind of get a better idea of what those colors are going to look like. So let's put that there so I can see it. I kind of think about Purple Mountain's Majesty. So let's try some of that. Mineral Violet. So we'll start out really diluted, not very opaque at all, and we can kind of build up the colors. And at the same time, try them out to see if we like them. There's no undo key. All right, it's gathering a little bit there. We kind of want it lighter next to the character, so I'm gonna brush away some of that. All right, I like that. A little more violet, a little red. It's a little closer, so it'll be a little less blue, a little bit less atmospheric. There goes the helicopter. There, see, it's just a little bit more red than the first wash. We might decide that we like these little white spots, these little white areas there. Let's see, so there's clouds at the base of it, so I'm going to try to brush some of the wet watercolor down there. Try to blend it just a bit, make some interesting textures there too. So, all right. I was thinking, should I make the frog green? Because frogs are always green. I was like, no, let's make him like bright orange or something. But actually, right now, I'm just thinking he's gonna be green. Kind of an off green. This is actually a cobalt green. This will be an important color probably. So I'll mix it there on the board. So there's more to go back to. Let's zoom in on this one. So there goes the first wash. It's a little dark, so I'm going to try to take out some of the paint in a few of the areas. Light's going to hit it about there. It's a little lighter on the nose, a little darker around the eyes. So take it off accordingly. There's a bit outside the lines that I don't want. Sometimes outside the lines is fine, but in this case I do want a sharp edge. A little more mess. Get rid of that outside the line, get rid of that outside the line. Dry it off. We even got a kind of a hint of a rim light there. Now for the hands. I'm lightening up the tips of the finger by removing the paint. There we go. So what's going on here is there's an underpainting in kind of a desaturated blue, and I'm giving washes on top now. The underpainting, the blue will sort of still be there because the top layer is going to be transparent, so the shadows will still be there, which will make it look shaded, you know. But this will be this is the local color we're putting in, so now the frog's not just a nice shaded frog, he's a greenish frog with shading, if that makes any sense. All right, some red for the mouth. The green is just dry enough that it won't blend in with the red. I'm taking a little bit of it out where I want the pencil to show through more. Really just need to hint that the color is red. Doesn't need to be full on red. All right, speaking of red, I need to go find a plug or a cable to plug my phone into. Okay, phone plugged in. We're not going to run out of battery before we finish the painting. Hooray! All right. I'm happy, you're happy, bird's happy. Let's get back to painting. So my page is folding up. So I'm going to use this rather heavy crystal, dragon crystal, and then we're going to put it right there to hold the page down so it doesn't curl up and warp and all the paint goes that way. Ah, disaster. Okay, there's a few more little areas. I want to paint, and they're all going to be red, so I'm going to try to figure out which areas want to be red. Like Mr. Chicken up here. Chickens have those strange red things on the top. What do you call those? Mohawk. No, it's not Mohawk. What do you call them? You call them baristas. Nope. Not even close. You know, it's hard to talk and draw at the same time. What I heard was it's hard to talk and draw at the same time because your left mind is words and thinking, your right mind is all creative, and never the two shall meet. But in reality, real science says that they're actually a lot more engaged with each other than we were led to believe. You know, I think the hippo's purple. I'm not sure though. All right, well, let's get to the stone. And mix a little yellow ochre. I'm sorry you can't see that, it's off camera, huh? But a little yellow ochre. And we'll get some nice neutral browns in there for the exposed rock. And that should contrast with the blue. Hopefully give us a sort of a granite kind of feel. Just a light wash. Do some edge control there. Gonna let a little bit of that blue just kind of peek through. Black, white, and brown are neutrals, and neutrals go with every color. So when in doubt, use the neutrals. You can see how the wash on top interacts with the underpainting, interacts with the blue shadows and value from below, you know, underneath it like a layer. That starts to make some really nice effects. The two washes bouncing off each other. Just because, like, I think the robot's local color is different than the rocks, but because it's kind of on the same plane, on the same area of distance, I think that it'll help him if he's somewhat the color of the rocks around him. So a little yellow ochre for the robot. The other good thing about this is a good rule of painting is background to foreground. So the background areas painted before the foreground areas. gathered up in a few places. I'm gonna lighten that a bit. I can also imagine there being some neutral brown areas around the shield, around their belts, his staff, you know, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint in those neutrals. This crystal actually is kind of a nice hand rest. Maybe I'll use it again. Nice. There we go, I like that. We'll do it here with the gauntlets. We'll make them into warm leather gauntlets. That makes a nice makes a nice highlight ribbon. I'll call them highlight ribbons. Right there, good highlight ribbon. I want to emphasize this highlight ribbon a little more, so it's watercolor, so again, you know, you can dilute it with water and then you can kind of take it back up, take it right off the paper. Do some edge control to get a good highlight ribbon edge. Highlight ribbon, trademark, Matthew Armstrong. Let's see, ivory black. Sometimes when I might want to make it kind of gray, like maybe these are big stone maces that he has back there, so. We'll see if that works. Nice, don't want to get too dark. Keep it nice and light around the this figure versus that figure. Keep it nice around the edges. When you're doing like an ink drawing, like you won't connect those lines because you want to push the frog forward and push hippo backwards. So same principle with watercolor. Leave the edges where they connect kind of lighter. So we'll pop frog forward, hippo backward. Let's see, I think that's, you could stand some yellow, and a little yellow ochre. have a gold-plated hilt, the weapon of a noble warrior, a noble frog warrior. Then we can trim the shield with the same. Just a little bit, doesn't have to be totally in the lines, just kind of hint. Like a little dab goes a long way. It's like you touch a little bit of it and make it a little bit yellow ochre, and then the rest of the object looks yellow or reads yellow, even though you haven't covered 100% of it. What's that little thing? Okay, looks like I left the lights on in the robot's eyes. So a little light blue might be in order. They're either on with blue light or they're reflecting the sky, which is blue. Either way, still good reasons to blue that up. Blow it up. Blow it up. Okay. Okay, I'm thinking that's going to be kind of a red, dark red leather on his tunic. Dull it down with a little brown. Dull it down with a lot more, a little brown. Okay, nice light wash. We'll just kind of paint around the belt. Have to let that dry before we tackle that area again. So they're all on the same team, so maybe they all kind of wear similar outfits, similar color outfits. There are similar colors on their outfits. A little permanent yellow, very light yellow on Mr. Chicken's beak. I think that's gonna be yellow. Looks pretty good though. I'm gonna warm up the nose with a little yellow. Red sleeves, we need red sleeves. This frog does not wear shoes. So there are a few restaurants that would not let him in. There are also restaurants he would not want to go into, such as frog leg restaurants, or restaurants that serve frog legs. So if these are like a warm brown, I think like this kind of fur that he's wearing. I was gonna go dark, but I think I should go light on it now. So maybe it's a light brown. I want to go light because this could be light, which will stand out from, you know, these kind of dark shapes around them. So I'm gonna try a very neutral yellow. There we go. Don't forget the other part. It's okay just to leave the edges of that white there to separate those two areas. Oops, there's a little part up there. There we go. So I do want to green up this nature environment. So right now I've got a nice brown wash on them, but in my head I was excited to try, what do they call this? Terra Verde green. I'm hoping that it's brown and green and yellow ochre and such. I'm hoping it will kind of combine to form a nice kind of vegetation growing on the mountainside kind of look. So kind of scumbling to make some interesting shapes, and then I'm going to take away the pigment. Kind of like that shape, so I don't want to mess with it. I might edit it later, but let's see how it dries first. So this is a really warm green up front, and just to contrast it, we'll put a cooler green back here. As if maybe this giant robot's just been there for so long that the vegetation and the moss has just oozed into his proto-metallic copper surface, or maybe he's made of copper, or a type of copper, and it's oxidized, and so now it's very green with oxidization. There we go. I like him being green. I kind of thought maybe he'd be red, but I think that would call too much attention to him, especially because he's a background element. So, oh yeah, I'll go with that. And if I use the same green that I'm using for the frog's skin and just kind of dab it here into the robot at strategic places, then it'll begin to harmonize the entire image with the, you know, same kind of greens and stuff like that. He doesn't always make sense, but sometimes he does. Sometimes he does not. Don't talk about yourself in a third person. Oh, okay. Good idea. Adding some texture dabs. Try to make this robot look a little beat up. Don't want it to dry into some kind of nice, smooth, even wash now, do we? I'd like to lighten up that foot top a little bit. Sunlight's hitting it from the top, so the top should be a little lighter. There we go. I could try a light wash of blue on the sky. I was kind of trying to avoid that because I don't want it to get too dark, and I could just do it in Photoshop later, but I'm feeling brave suddenly. So I'm going to get my cerulean sky blue out. I'm going to lighten it quite a bit or dilute it quite a bit so it'll come out light. Add lots of water to it, and we'll just kind of paint the sky. Looks just like the sky out my window. Little puffy clouds. Trying to move fast because I don't want it to dry, but because I know it will dry a little bit, I'm trying to make interesting shapes. So if it does dry a little bit, it will dry interestingly, which is better than uninterestingly. I mean, sometimes you make a drawing and that's kind of all you got going for you. Ah, it's interesting. Thank you. That's what I was going for, was interestingly. All right. Can move some of that pigment down to help us down here. All around the corner of Frog's head. There are some fun things happening there, though. Might help us give a sense of action. Let's see, oops, a little dab there. Soak that right up. Take the paint off of the corner, put it down here. We do a big wash like this. It's fun to watch the paint seep into the cold press paper. See that starts forming these beautiful textures that just come from the paper and the watercolor marrying each other, joining forces, combining. With our powers combined, we form paper that's textured. I don't know. All right, let's get this side. I've tried to think ahead, so I knew this area would dry here, and I tried to let it dry at this small area so you wouldn't really see, you won't see an edge where they meet up. So we'll see. Yes, Mr. Tweet. Oh, is that right? I think you should do something about that. All right. It's not flawless, of course, but that's what we like about watercolor. You know, it's not digitally precise. It's kind of the opposite. It's completely handmade and organic. Bit of a rarity in pop art these days, wouldn't you say? Well, if you say so. I suppose. Yep, that's whatever you're tweeting about for you. Okay, I think some warm green down there is in order. Make sure there's a lot of atmosphere, so we'll leave some of the paper coming through some of the white as if there's clouds floating down there. Atmospheric perspective, a lot of atmosphere down there. I see how it marries with the blue quite well. Starts forming like a bunch of different shades of green. Hello. I'm great. How are you? Good. Yay, my wife's back. All right, let's finish up the details on Mr. Hippopotamus. Mr. Hippopotamus. Hi, guys.
Hi guys.
Did you know if hippos see a fire in the jungle, they will run up and stamp it out? Just kidding. That's a rhinoceros that does that. The answer was rhinoceros. More texture dabs. This is a furry tunic, so we should have a furry texture. Some of this material, some of this yellow ochre fur, some of it peeking out of his gauntlets here. So. Voila. All right, I think his amulet is blue because it will tie in with the other magical things. Actually, that should dry. That should dry pretty cool, actually, so let's leave that alone. Let's do some more pure cerulean blue over here. On the second wash to try to get that tiny little crystal. Even better. Okay, I need my paperweight back. Thunk. Don't want anything moving that way as it dries. All right, purple. I mean, all right, hippo. What color are you, hippo? Pink, gray. Maybe just, so these mountains are purple, but they're blue purple, right? They're cool purple. He's in the foreground. If I make him warm purple, then I think think that'd be a good thing. So let's try some rose madder. Sorry, I can't see that. Please forgive the non-professional video making techniques. We are one camera studio. It's handmade, right? It's low budget. Definitely low budget. Let's see. Mixing a little bit of this, mixing a flesh tone together and some of the red. Making a light. That doesn't quite look purple yet, so ultramarine blue to the rescue. Yeesh. All right, I'll try it like this lightly, and then I can always mix blue over the top of it later to make it more purple. Actually, that's gonna come in just fine. Whew, it worked. I am a genius. Yes, I am. Yes, you are. I'm trying to be nicer to myself. Sometimes to be truly nice, you must lie. That's of course not true. Oops, too much. There we go. Yeah, I like that. So this purple is actually a very blue-red, but when it comes in this lightly on top of that blue first wash, it really, really does appear as a nice light pink purple. All right, that is a good first wash. Belt buckle. Let's see, belt buckle. Neutral brassy yellow for you. Belt buckle. Oh no, it looks a lot like the fur. Okay, hang on. I can fix this. I'm gonna take that up with some water. This is close to Control-Alt-Delete. No, just kidding, Control-Z. That was my Control-Z, was that paper there, right? All right, yellow. It'll be more saturated. It'll really pop against that yellow ochre. This is a canary yellow, which is very saturated. Very good. Okay. I think that'll be okay. I might put some blue on top of it to kind of back it off a bit. Good, good. Let's see, tunic. I'm gonna add some texture dabs to the tunic. Dried a little bit washed out, and in this case, because he's a foreground character, we don't want washed out, we want striking, contrast, because he's in the foreground, so he gets all the bright colors and all the high contrast. I think these gauntlets, they should probably be red too. Or at least we can start him off red, and then we can kind of push him into another color direction a little bit later. Be a little off red, but it is part of his knight's costume accoutrement, his knight's I can't think of a cool word for it. His knight outfit, sure. His knight vestige. I think it'd be good if these gauntlets were a little shiny, so I'm leaving little bits of white, or trying to. Didn't quite succeed. There we go. Okay, I think I've been putting off the bunny rabbit long enough, don't you? Hello, Mr. Bunny. Oh, he is a grumpy mage. I wonder why. Now, a lot of the rabbits are white, and that's all well and good, but what if he was a fire bunny? What if he was a fire mage? And if he was a fire mage, maybe he's been using fire long enough to turn into kind of an orangish red. One would hope that his fur is fireproof fur. I believe that is the right of all pyromancer bunny mages, that they are indeed fireproof. That'll be his comic. Fireproof Rabbit. The pyromancer bunny from beyond the flame. Not bad, huh? I'll let him be just a little bit lighter around the nose and eyes. Excellent. A little bit lighter on the middle of the ears. Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, and he pops forward. He has a staff. It is not dull brown wood. After all wood burns, it is made of witch wood, which appears like a appears like a dark red ruby crystal. So we have a nice dark red. I'll have to delicately put this in because it is a very small area. A little too dark. But if I let it bleed in with a lighter red, it might give me that crystal effect. No, starting to bleed into the yellow. Don't panic. It's only watercolor. You can always add water to lighten it up. You can always undo with more water. Dilute, dilute, dilute. And use the brush to suck up the pigment. Nice. We'll hit that area after it dries a bit. But it might actually turn out okay. This dark red is a rose madder, though it looks like a alizarin crimson to me. Alizarin crimson is a oil paint. That's a cool red. That's pretty standard and very, very handy when you're oil painting. There we go. Still just a little wet, so I'll edit it a little bit. There. And then I might dab a little bit of cerulean blue on that crystal to really drive home the blueness of it. All right. Like all good pyromancers, he loves the color red. And so this red feather robe that he wears, made from the husk of a phoenix. Yeah, a phoenix made of phoenix feathers that were gifted to him by the phoenix people for his service in rescuing their young Prince Phoenix. Oh, I should let that dry, but I got too greedy. I don't want that to bleed into there. So I'm gonna leave these there so they're not too transparent, you know, so they'll be really bright red. I might have to add a second coat, but I can add a few really opaque reds in here. Lord Tweet agrees with me. His name's not actually Lord Tweet, it's Merlin. He's a blue parakeet. He's a blue canary on the light switch who watches over you. He's killed Jason off and several evil Argonauts. And he keeps the beaches shipwreck free. Good job, Merlin. Okay, so we'll let all those dry, and then we'll fill in the rest of the red areas, and should have a really cool looking phoenix cloak. I think it's one of my favorite things about drawing or making these little images is the story happens, it comes from who knows where. It's almost like I'm telling my story as I'm telling myself a story while I'm drawing or painting. And that's a lot of fun because you never know what's gonna show up, what the story's gonna be. And I surprised myself, and it's just wonderful to be in a room with the door closed, here with your music or with yourself painting or drawing, and all is right with the world. Dry, 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 dry. You gotta dry, 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 dry. Maybe I should change the water. Dry, 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 dry. Dry, 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 dry. Let's see, get that back in the frame. That page is really folded up on me, so So we'll do that. All right, almost at the end here. That's right, Merlin. It is almost finished. Okay, I've decided his scarf is going to be yellow-orange. And so are his other accents. Chicken really respects Thunder Frog, so Thunder Toad, Thunder Frog. Still working on it. It's a work in progress. Anyway, he really respects him, so he kind of dresses the same. And this shadow's a little dark, so I'm going to go in there with some water and just kind of knock it back a little bit. So I like that purple a lot, and I just want to warm it up a little bit. So if I do a cool yellow on it, I might be able to warm up a few areas and separate them from the other purple background there. Just a little bit though. It's just a little wash on top. A little bit around the nose. Kind of blend it in. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I think we could also warm up the chicken. Just a bit. Just reflections from the warm objects around him, warming up the his face and other areas. I can even go in there with another wash and kind of purple it up a bit. I'm thinking about adding some ultramarine blue to cool down this background and hopefully push it back a bit. So just adding some interesting shapes where I want to darken and add in shadows. Toying with the idea of cooling this area down too. So let's try it. I'm not sure, but no guts, no glory, no pain, no gain. You can neither win nor lose if you don't run the race. I am letting it sit on there to really kind of soak in and add that pigment to the cold pressed paper. Hopefully it will get into its little nooks and crannies, its little paper texture. Will start to pop. But this is kind of a dark wash. A dangerous wash. As it dries, it begins to fade. I think I could make some interesting textures if I take some of it out. I'm trying not to leave, or I'm trying not to remove any of the interesting textures, but I'm trying to edit it just a little bit so it will read more clearly. Lighten it up around the bird. It's kind of a hard edge there I want to get rid of. Don't want the edges to draw too much attention. All right, let's see how that dries. No regrets. That's right, Merlin. No regrets. Yes. How about, oops. How about some of that Terra Verde green? On Fire Bunny's perch. If we make it opaque, it will pop out from the green behind it. Just little bits of moss and grass. Which reminds me, I'm trying to paint in the rest of that Pyromancer cloak. Made of phoenix. How about this? We'll do a big wash like that. Do a takeaway. Little wash, do a quick takeaway because I don't want it to dry that dark. At least not dry that dark everywhere. Just add a little red here and there for texture, for color harmony. Yeah, I like that. Let's do some more. This is called Crimson Lake. Interesting. Really looks like a alizarin crimson. I already said that, didn't I? So this is when the real magic happens with watercolors. You can add these kind of these layers, you know, at the end. that sort of start creating really interesting effects. Interesting effects because we wouldn't want our watercolor to be boring, would we? No, we would not. So I'm just using this kind of blue-red. The blue-red can blend in with the rest of the blues rather well and warm up some areas to start defining the form a little bit. Make this large spheroid area kind of start going around. Even a little bit of, it's almost like, you know, the cool light comes from the sky being blue and everything, bounces off the ground and casts warm light up. And so this red paint here is the warm light being bounced up. In a watercolory kind of way. Those reds are kind of pretty there. We'll let them stay. I'm just getting a few details in there. Color variation, reflected light, texture, stroke design, I could call that, brush stroke design. Might be cute if his cheeks are kind of blushing a little bit. Not yours. Green and red do not mix. They are complementary opposites, and they will fight each other. They can't help it. It is known. It is the way. All right, just a few more reds. I'm liking how that turns out, so. I use it to define some of the shapes that have gotten lost. And to add some texture, like to this coat, this furry coat, make it look a little more furry. Blend in these areas. All right, how about that? I like that shadow on the tongue, but I just want it to be a little lighter around that edge. There you go, not much. Don't want to lose it entirely. Okay, and just a little bit of, just make his eyes just a little yellow. A little highlight right there, see? Just a little yellow, not too much. In fact, quite subliminally yellow. All right. Maybe that tongue is a little more red. I might have to do that shadow in again. But that was a break, Skiddo. I try to cool down those blades with some gray. So we'll start out with ivory black, and then we will dilute that ivory black so it is quite gray. We'll leave some highlights on the sword. Ah, but this sword is magic. We don't want to disturb that, do we? I'm thinking if I add a little yellow to this, it'll be kind of like a blue-green energy, and that will help it look magic. But really I might have to go in with colored pencils or something to really make it a cool effect. But I think it'll be a good start. And look how this is dried over here. This is nice and you know, textury, and it's divided from the rest of the image quite well. So I think that was a good gamble, and it paid off. And I do like how this sword moves up like this, comes down here, and makes this into this interesting blue shapey thing. So you see that? Straight up, goes around and down through here, and that's composition. It keeps the eye moving around the canvas, which is always a good thing. Let's see, what was I going to do? I forgot. Oh, let's try adding that light yellow to the magic effect. Wish me luck. Actually, I think a little bit of yellow would be nice right there too. Just because this robot's nose is peeking out like that. Let's see, the energy is brightest in the middle, much like a lightsaber. So the lightsaber sound. So crackles with energy. Sometimes my wife is like, "Hey, what's going on in that art room? Are you drawing X-Wing fighters?" I'm like, "No." You know. Yeah. Magic sword. Got some crackles off of there. Maybe even a little bit more since we're feeling frisky. All right. That light is strong, and it is going to cast on everything around it. So even though we're not working opaquely, we can still add the yellow where the light might be hitting this stuff, the other things. And light travels far. It could even reach as far away as this chicken. Okay. Almost done. There's a few areas where light or white from the paper is showing out. We don't want to cover everything. That white from the paper is actually really handy to harmonize everything together. And everything's not perfectly colored, you know, it's not like Photoshop. There's nothing wrong with Photoshop. I use it all the time, every day, but it's not like Photoshop where everything's kind of filled into the edges and stuff like that. It's okay for it to be kind of messy and not be perfect and not be all in the lines. That's kind of the metaphor, the representation of it. You know, it's more representative, more expressive, and a little bit abstract than most digital art, which I do digital art as well, and I love digital art. Definitely not putting one above the other, but they are different tools and they have different strengths, and it's good to know what those are. this is just one final wash, just adding little bits of texture and connecting shapes, pushing some forward, pushing some back. You kind of develop a sense of what it needs, what the image needs. The more images you make, the more artwork you make, the more you just kind of have a sense of what works and what doesn't. And that's perseverance. Let's keep on making things, and you keep on learning, you keep on improving. And perseverance will always win out over raw talent, every time. In fact, I had one of my favorite art teachers said that all talent is just the desire to paint, just the desire to do it. And that because you had that desire to do it and you kept on painting, you kept on trying, that's how you got better, and that's what your talent, that's what talent is, that's what talent means. So that's a good definition of talent. There's probably more than one. In fact, I'm sure of it. I'm really just getting in there and noodling a little bit. Not gonna let myself noodle too much, but maybe a little bit. Unimportant areas can be allowed. And just think of where you'd want edges, where some of the hard line shapes should be blended together, where some of the white of the paper coming through can be covered, all while leaving out the areas that you don't want covered. All right, let's call that good. One more step, but I can't do it until it all dries up. All right, one last thing. This is a micron pen, a number 8. I like number 8 because it can go really, really big or really, really small too if you use the edge of the tip. So micron 8. What we're going to use the micron 8 for is to add dark accents. That's a painter term. You're adding line, you're doing some cartooning, adding some, cartoon lines in here, but they also work as dark accents, and it will pop the shapes and separate them better and emphasize the lines where we want them emphasized, and we'll leave the pencil lines showing through where we want them to. And so these combination of dark and light lines will sort of flesh it out, push things forward, push things back. And it's a nice effect. It's a good final thing to do on watercolors. It's something that you would definitely want to do at the end, even though this is really waterproof. It's not perfect waterproof, you don't want to run into trouble. So this is a good step to do at the end. But all rules are made to be broken. So good luck to you if you'd like to try that. It's a principle. It means that this has worked through all time. And this works. It has worked. Give it a try. Ignore it at your peril. But sometimes it's fun to ignore it, and sometimes it makes a good effect. It's good advice, huh? All right, let's draw. All right, let's do frog first. We'll zoom right in there. This is why you're supposed to tape down your watercolor first. But that's okay. We're keeping the cash. So these are pretty dark. That's as dark a pencil mark as you can possibly make. But black ink is just a little better, just a little darker. So I'm not tracing every line, but there are areas I want to emphasize. I want to accent them. So that's how we get the term dark accents. Just lightly go over there, add some texture, add a little bit of cross hatching. But I want the watercolor to do most of the work, not the ink, so I'll just add a little bit of cross hatching, not a lot. Think about what the darkest areas would be, or where they'd be, because the light's coming from here, so they'd be on the underside. It's a little bit where the cast shadow would be. That's where you want your dark accents to take up residence. I can darken in this belt. I can add more details to the belt buckle. Where there would be kind of collected shadows, I can put those in there now. I can outline overlapping shapes to pop one forward and pull one back. I want to pop this foot in front of his stone mace, so I'm just using the edge of the Micron 8. It's a big nib, but if you use the edge of it, it'll make a thin line. And make an interesting line too. A little bit dancey and jagged and precise line, which I think's more interesting maybe than a perfect line. Works a little bit like a G pen nib or a fountain pen nib. So they're creating a consistent, one consistent width of a line. It creates kind of a more interesting thick to thin line. If you practice with it long enough, you kind of develop a real sense for it. You see, because these lines are so dark, it means these dark pencil lines kind of look lighter. So now I think it starts to even look more like it's glowing. I like how this red fights that right there, so it does not need a dark line. Let the watercolor do most of the work. We're just going to help a little bit with some dark accents from this pen. I guess you could think of it as like 10% ink and 90% watercolor. Do a contour line to separate the fist from the shield. Do a little bit of line work on the shield. So you can kind of put a line in and then taper it off. One thing about inking is your hand has a natural bit of line wiggle that comes out, which gives it this handmade look. And some days my hands are just shaking a little bit more than others, but I think it adds a lot to the overall look and feel. This foot can be separated from the hippo there, hippo gauntlet. Just kind of follow the contour line, add some texture into there. kind of like, see this nice, I can let that line alone because I like the lighter one, as if the sunlight's hitting it right there. Just a few cross hatches. All right. Let's see, there's chicken. We're gonna do him too. Okay. Emphasize some of the woods. Emphasize some of the wood banding. Maybe add some stitches into his tunic. I feel like that works. Let's get into chicken. Do his eyes first. Contour lines. I'm leaving a space right there, as if the sun's hitting that point. So you can use the line work to shade a little bit too. Leave a space right there, keep the line going. Use these dark accents to separate the shapes where they need separating, to emphasize everything just a little bit more. So his sword is not magic. It is not glowing, so we will use a dark line, a contour line to pop it away from the clouds. His feet are in front, so tracing his hands, adding some cross hatching to that, adding definition to everything, popping them off of the robot. There we go. Alright, and that's chicken. He's a little messy, but that's okay, he's in the background. Next is hippo. Alright, let's focus on the eyes first. I'm gonna let some of the pencil pop through at the center of the eye to make it look like a reflection or a highlight maybe. Gives it just a little bit of depth. Work on this contour line first, thick. Space for the light, thin to thick again. Space for the light, thick. Thick to thin, thin to thick. Thicker, thinner, thinner, thinner. Couple of cross hatches. I'm gonna leave his nostrils just pencil, so they're lighter than the eyes, so they don't, fight each other. And I actually think give him a little give him some eyebrows, because that will help with his expression. Looks cuter. He's a nice hippo. Okay, I want to separate this background fur from The gauntlets. These gauntlets aren't at the right angle to kind of see how they're constructed. I can see them in my head, but I actually you'd have to take them out. You know, they'd be in a stick and then kind of have at the end of the stick would be kind of a stonish thing, but that's not going to read unless you see him do that. But hopefully it's something nobody else will think about, including you, because I just said it, but don't think about it. Okay, let's get this amulet in there. He's got a string for the amulet buried in his tunic. I'll add some dark accents. Where the tunic meets the belt, there'll be a lot of shadows gathering under there. I don't want to separate these objects from each other, so. Arm. You just draw really lightly for the nice thin lines, and you push for thicker, darker lines. Just in case you're wondering how that works. I was wondering, quiet you. Sorry. Using some dark accents to separate all these things. The fur into the gauntlet, into the arm. Thick, thin, thick again. I think we can leave some of these lines alone. Okay, this hand. I really want to separate it from the background robot. If you believe you can do it, then you can do it. Let's see, okay. Just a little bit of, add some dark accents here where the head goes into the collar. A little bit of cross hatching to give it some form and texture. Here is the amulet. The amulet is bigger on this side. Emphasize the highlight a little bit. Let's see, I gotta reposition so you can see his feet. Okay, let's finish hippo. Going there for some final contour lines. really make some decisions, figure out what lines we like and want to keep, and separate the background from the foreground quite a lot here. Big, thick contour line. And a lot of shadow is going to gather right underneath the foot, of course. A couple of knee wrinkles. Bit buckle. That belt connect with the furry tunic. Add some cross hatches in there for texture and to darken it up just a little bit. Right. What you leave out is just as important as what you put in. I'm not completely tracing all the lines, but there are a few good pencil lines in there. I don't know if you can see them, but I am making decisions of which ones to pull out with the dark accents, with the line work of the ink. But I also really like how some of the watercolors doing the work of definitioning or defining the object. So I'm trying to leave in where that's working and not disturb it with the ink. Kind of do a scumbly line there too. Organic leafy. Ah, Mr. Raven, we meet again. Okay, let's make sure this is focused on Rabbit. I think that's the last thing we want to do here. Is that right? Well, you better do something about that. All right, hand. Get those little scarf tassels. Gonna do some of the contour, but not all of it. I can just let this be a shape. Yes, I can, and I will too. Crow or raven, I'm not totally sure. Ka-ka, ka-ka-ka. I can speak crow, did you know that? Ka-ka, ka-ka-ka, ka-ka. That's also baby speak for diapers. Caca. Caca, 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 caca. Alright, let's get this mountain. There we go. Just kind of define this area here with some dark accents. What is that, like a bush or a mushroom or something? I need to make another one. See, if this one has cross-hatching, this one doesn't. Separate it even further. You can kind of be loose with environmental lines, I think. Abstract makes it really interesting, but don't overdo it. Okay, staff. Let's get his staff in there. Emphasize the highlight. The bottom line work of the staff here on the underside of it is going to be a lot darker than the top part where the sun's hitting it. You don't need to trace the whole thing. Going in there and defining the phoenix cloak. It's made of feathers. You don't need to draw every feather. Just suggest that there's more than one feather. I think I'd give him a... I was just toying about giving him an eyebrow, but I kind of like the expression that it has. It's a little ambiguous, like is he grumpy? You know, is he not grumpy? Is he just like, ah, come on guys? Or is he kind of happy to see him? But he's one of those people who doesn't shows emotions that well. I don't know, but I will emphasize, or I will kind of edit this, there, edit Hippo's eyebrow. And I will, let's see, okay, chicken's in frame. I will make chicken even happier. Okay, well, there we are. I think this has been a successful painting, a successful session.
Thanks so much for watching this special extended edition of the Matthew Armstrong Draws and Paints Something show. Guest starring Merlin, the blue parakeet. Let's do another one soon. Same Matt time, same Matt channel. Happy painting, my friends.